Welcome to another deep dive.
Yeah.
Today we're going to be looking at verse 26 of the Bhaja Govindam,
Okay.
a classic text attributed to the Indian philosopher Adi Shankaracharya.
Right.
Now, I know philosophy can sometimes feel a bit, well, dusty and abstract.
Yeah.
But this verse, it really packs a punch, I think.
It does.
It's all about overcoming suffering and finding inner peace.
Mm.
Which, let's be honest, who couldn't use a little more of that, right?
Yeah, I think we could all use a little bit more inner peace these days, for sure.
For sure. So what's really intriguing to me about this verse is how it challenges our everyday perceptions.
Yeah.
Shankaracharya is essentially saying that true happiness, it doesn't come from changing the world around us, but from changing our understanding of it.
Yeah, it's like upgrading your mental software.
Right. Okay, I'm intrigued. I'm ready to upgrade. But where do we even begin with that kind of upgrade?
Oh.
This verse starts by telling us to stop stressing over labels like enemy or friend or family.
Right.
Like, that seems kind of counterintuitive, though. Aren't these relationships important?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's not that you want to erase those roles in your life,
Okay.
but it's about realizing that those are just one layer of reality.
Hey.
It's like, mistaking the clothes someone's wearing for the actual person underneath them.
Okay.
And this idea actually connects to something called Vedajnana, which is the root of suffering, according to the verse.
Vedajnana.
Yeah, it literally translates to the knowledge that creates divisions.
Okay, so we get so caught up in, labels and categories that we kind of miss the bigger picture.
Right.
So what's the consequence of that? What happens when we miss the bigger picture?
Well, think about the cycle of birth and death. In Hinduism, that's called samsara. And it's this pedajnana that keeps us stuck in that cycle.
Okay.
It creates this sense of separation, this sense of me versus the world.
Okay.
And that separation, that's what leads to all the attachment and the fear and ultimately all kinds of suffering.
So it's like we're building these mental prisons for ourselves.
Yeah.
And Vedajnana is the key that locks us in.
Yeah, exactly. And what's so fascinating is that this ancient idea, it actually resonates with modern psychology.
Oh, really?
Yeah, like you think about all the cognitive biases that we have, these mental shortcuts that our brains are using to simplify information.
Right.
They're helpful in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
But they also can lead us to, categorize people and situations in ways that aren't always accurate or fair.
So those snap judgments that we make, the ease versus them mentalities, that's Vedajnana in action.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And to break free from those mental traps, that's a huge part of what this verse is all about.
Okay.
Shankaracharya argues that we're tricked by this concept called Maya, which is usually translated as illusion.
Hold on, Maya illusion. Yeah. Is he saying that the world isn't real?
No, not exactly.
Okay.
It's more about how we perceive reality.
Okay.
So think about like a magician's trick.
Okay.
You see the rabbit appear out of the hat, but it's not really magic.
Right.
There's a deeper explanation, even though your senses might be telling you otherwise.
Okay, I see. So Maya, it's like a magician's trick, tricking us into seeing separation where there might actually be connection.
That's a good way to put it. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So how do we break free from that? Do we need to become like, super perceptive,
right,
like mental escape artists or something?
It's less about escaping and more about shifting our understanding.
Okay.
So Shankaracharya says that, beneath all the differences that we perceive, there's this unified self or Atman connecting us all.
So like, we each have our own individual personalities and bodies.
Right.
But there's this like deeper level where we're all linked together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And recognizing that shared self, that's one called Sarvatmahava. And that's like the antidote to Vedajnana.
Got it.
So instead of seeing it as me versus you, it's more of a sense of we.
Okay. But wouldn't that mean that we're like ignoring real conflicts and injustices?
No.
Doesn't everyone have to be responsible for their own actions?
It's not about ignoring responsibility or pretending that, everybody's the same.
Yeah.
It's about acknowledging that underlying connection, even as we're navigating those differences and conflicts.
Right.
And that's where it gets really powerful, because this shift in perception, that's what allows us to break free from a lot of unnecessary suffering.
So it's not about forcing ourselves to like everyone.
No.
But it's about seeing them as fellow humans, just trying to navigate the same world.
Exactly.
Right.
And that can make such a huge difference in how we approach our relationships and, conflict resolution, even just our own inner peace.
This is reminding me of that saying, like, walk a mile in another man's shoes.
Yeah, that's a great analogy
Totally.
because by understanding that we're all connected, even to people who seem very different from us, we can start to cultivate, more compassion and understanding.
Okay, I like that. So how do we actually do that, though?
Well,
It still seems kind of abstract to me.
it's not like a one-time fix, It's more of an ongoing practice.
Okay.
So Shankaracharya would say that it's about cultivating awareness.
Okay, but what does that look like in practice?
Well,
Do we need to go live in a cave and meditate for years?
no. It can be much simpler than that.
Okay.
It might start with just noticing those moments when you're making snap judgments about others.
Oh, okay. So when that person cuts me off in traffic and I instantly label them a jerk.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So right in that moment, try to pause.
Okay.
Remember that this person, just like you, is a complex human being
Right.
with their own story, their own struggles. Maybe they're rushing to the hospital. Maybe they're dealing with, some kind of personal crisis.
Right. We don't know.
We have no idea.
So we're not condoning bad behavior,
No.
but we're trying to see beyond the surface level, find that shared humanity.
Precisely.
Okay.
And that shift in perspective, it can have a ripple effect. So instead of getting angry and fueling that cycle of negativity, you might find yourself, feeling a bit more understanding, maybe even compassionate.
This is starting to make sense.
Yeah.
It's not about denying, our own feelings or experiences, but choosing to see things through a different lens.
Yeah.
One that recognizes our interconnectedness.
And that's where the real transformation begins.
This is already blowing my mind, and we've just scratched the surface of this verse.
Oh, yeah.
Can't wait to dig in even deeper.
There's a lot more to unpack here. Stay tuned. We're just getting started.
Okay, so we're talking about shifting our perspective to actually see this shared self in everyone.
Right.
Even, those who might seem like our total opposites.
Yeah.
That's a pretty big mental leap for a lot of us, I think.
It is.
Where do we even start with something like that?
Well, it's kind of like learning a new language. It takes time and it takes practice.
Right.
But the benefits, that can be huge.
Yeah.
Remember we were talking about that cycle of birth and death?
Yeah.
Well, Shankaracharya believed that, recognizing this shared self-practicing, sarvatma bhava, it's a key to breaking free from that cycle.
Wait, really? So this isn't just about feeling better in the moment.
No.
It has deeper implications for our spiritual journey.
Absolutely.
Okay.
So, in Hindu philosophy, the cycle of birth and death is driven by karma,
Right.
which is basically the accumulation of all of our actions and their consequences. When we're trapped in pevijnana, that mindset of separation.
Yeah.
Our actions, they tend to be more self-centered,
Okay.
creating, more karma and keeping us bound to that cycle.
So if we're constantly focused on me versus them or my needs versus yours,
Right.
we're just creating more of the energy that keeps us stuck.
Yeah, it's like you're digging yourself deeper into a hole.
Yeah, I get that. Okay.
But sarvatma bhava, that flips the script.
Okay, how so?
Well, when we can see that shared self in others, our actions naturally become more compassionate, less driven by ego.
Right.
And this creates a different kind of karma,
Okay.
one that helps us move towards liberation.
So by changing our inner world, our perception, we can actually change our outer world, our actions and their consequences.
Exactly. It's a powerful idea, and one that's actually gaining a lot of traction these days, even in modern psychology.
Oh, really?
Yeah, there's a growing body of research showing that practices like mindfulness and compassion training,
Right.
they can have a real impact on our behavior and our well-being.
So this isn't just some ancient esoteric concept.
Yeah.
There's real science backing this up.
Yes, and the more we understand about how the brain works, the more we see how interconnected we truly are.
Yeah.
For example, there's this thing called mirror neurons.
Okay.
And these neurons, they fire both when we perform an action and when we observe someone else doing the same action.
So it's our brains are wired for empathy and understanding.
It seems so.
Wow, that's pretty wild.
Yeah, and when we resist that connection, when we get stuck in those patterns of separation, it creates tension, stress, even physical and mental health problems.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
So practicing sarvatma bhava, it's not just about being a nice person.
No.
It's also about taking care of ourselves.
It's both. When we cultivate that sense of interconnectedness, it benefits us and the people around us. It's like this ripple effect,
Yeah.
A single act of kindness, it can have this huge impact spreading outwards, like waves in a pond.
I love that analogy.
Right.
I'm starting to see how this could completely revolutionize our approach to conflict resolution.
Right.
Imagine if instead of seeing, the other person as the enemy, we could tap into that shared self. That understanding that we're both just trying to figure out this crazy world.
Exactly. It doesn't mean that we have to agree with them or condone their actions.
Right.
But it allows for this totally different kind of dialogue. Yeah. One that's based on empathy and respect.
So it's like shifting from that like win-lose mentality to a win-win, where we're both trying to find, a solution that actually works for everyone.
That's a great way to put it. And even if we can't, find that perfect solution, at least we can interact with each other in a way that minimizes harm and promotes understanding.
That's so important. This is all sounding amazing, but I'm also aware that it's not always easy to put this into practice.
Right.
We're constantly bombarded with messages that reinforce division and separation.
Yeah.
In the media, on social media, even in our own families sometimes.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. It's an uphill battle in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
But that's where mindfulness comes in.
Okay.
So by becoming more aware of our thoughts and feelings and reactions, we can start to catch those moments when we're slipping back into that peta jnana mode.
So it's about becoming more aware of those like automatic judgments, those us versus them thoughts that just kind of pop into our heads without us even realizing it.
Precisely. And once we become aware of them, we have a choice.
Right.
We can choose to respond differently. Right. So instead of getting swept away by those thoughts and emotions, we can pause, take a breath, and try to see the situation from a more compassionate perspective.
It's like hitting the pause button on our autopilot.
Yeah.
And choosing a different path.
Yeah.
One that leads to more connection and understanding.
Exactly. And, the more we practice this, the easier it becomes.
Right.
It's like training a muscle, The more you use it, the stronger it gets.
This is making me think about my own relationships. Even with people I'm really close to.
Yeah.
Sometimes those like peta jnana patterns, they sneak in even when we really love someone.
That's so true. We can fall into those traps of judgment and blame, even with the people we care about the most.
Right.
But by remembering that, we're all connected, we're all sharing this journey together, it becomes easier to let go of those like petty grievances and focus on what really matters.
I'm starting to realize that this verse isn't just offering like a philosophical concept.
Yeah.
It's giving us a practical roadmap for, a more fulfilling and meaningful life.
And the best part is that anyone can access this wisdom. It doesn't require any special training or initiation.
Yeah.
It's simply a matter of choosing to see the world through a different lens.
It's really empowering to think that we have the power to, change our perception.
Yeah.
And in doing so, we can change our whole experience of the world.
Absolutely. And that's what makes Shankaracharya's teachings so timeless and relevant, even centuries after, they were written.
This has been such an incredible deep dive so far.
It has.
It feels like we're uncovering a whole new way of being in the world.
There's still more to explore.
Oh, yeah.
Let's continue our journey into this powerful verse and see what other gems of wisdom we can uncover.
Wow. Okay, I'm still processing everything we talked about, like Advaita Vedanta and Maya and Sarvamabhava.
It's a lot to take in.
It's like my brain is doing a mental yoga routine right now.
Yeah.
But in a good way.
Yeah, it is a lot. But the core message, I think, is incredibly simple.
Okay.
Most deceptively so. It's really about recognizing that interconnectedness and letting go of that illusion of separation.
Which is easier said than done, I think.
Oh, for sure.
We're so conditioned to see ourselves as these separate individuals.
Yeah.
Competing for resources, fighting for our own little corner of the world.
Yeah, and that conditioning, it starts really early.
It does.
We're taught to compare ourselves to others, to strive for success and recognition, often at the expense of others.
Yeah.
Like we're playing this zero-sum game where someone always has to lose.
Right. But what if we could rewrite the rules of the game?
Yeah.
What if instead of seeing each other as rivals, we saw each other as teammates?
That's the kind of radical shift in perspective that Shankaracharya is pointing to.
Right.
It's not about, erasing individuality or pretending that differences don't exist.
Okay.
It's about recognizing that beneath those differences, there's this fundamental unity, this shared humanity that binds us all together.
And tapping into that unity, that's where the real power lies.
Absolutely. Because when we see ourselves as interconnected, our actions, they naturally become more aligned with the well-being of the whole. So we're less likely to act in ways that harm others, knowing that, ultimately we're just harming ourselves.
Right. It's like that saying, when you cut down a tree, you cut down a part of yourself.
Exactly. And when we can extend that understanding to all beings, to the entire planet, we start to see how our actions have these far-reaching consequences.
So Sarvatmabhava isn't just like, some abstract philosophical concept.
No.
It's a blueprint for like a more sustainable and compassionate way of living.
It's a call to action. It's about recognizing that we're all part of something much larger than ourselves, and our choices, even those seemingly small ones, they have an impact on the world around us.
It's empowering to think that we have the power to create that ripple effect.
Yeah.
To contribute to a more harmonious and interconnected world.
Absolutely.
But where do we start? How do we translate, this ancient wisdom into practical action in our everyday lives?
Well, it can be as simple as just paying attention to your thoughts.
Okay.
Noticing those moments when you're judging or criticizing others.
Yeah.
And instead of fueling those negative thoughts, trying to cultivate a sense of understanding and compassion.
So the next time I'm, tempted to road rage at that slow driver in front of me,
Right.
I should try to imagine them as like a grandmother rushing to see her newborn grandchild or something.
Exactly. Or maybe they're, a stressed out student late for a final exam.
Right.
We never know what's going on in someone else's life.
That's a good reminder to extend a little grace and understanding to everyone we encounter.
Yeah.
So what are some other ways that we can practice Sarvatmabhava, in our daily lives?
It can be as simple as smiling at a stranger, or offering a helping hand to someone in need, or just listening, with an open heart to someone who's struggling.
It's about shifting our focus from me to we, from competition to collaboration.
Yeah, and those small acts of kindness and connection, they can have such a transformative effect, not just on the recipient, but on ourselves as well.
Right, because when we act from a place of interconnectedness, we tap into this source of joy and fulfillment that goes beyond our own individual needs and desires.
It's a sense of belonging,
Yeah.
a sense of being part of something larger than ourselves.
This whole conversation has been like a breath of fresh air.
Yeah.
It's a reminder that there's a different way of being in the world, a way that's more aligned with our true nature as these interconnected beings.
And that way of being, it's available to each and every one of us.
Right.
It's not something that you have to earn or achieve.
Yeah.
It's already within us.
It's just waiting to be uncovered. Well, this has been an incredible deep dive into the wisdom of verse 26 of the Bhaja Govindam.
It has.
We explored the concepts of Parishnana and Maya and Sarvatmabhava.
Yeah.
And we've seen how these ancient ideas, they can offer this practical roadmap for, more fulfilling and meaningful life.
And we've learned that by cultivating awareness, practicing compassion, and recognizing that interconnectedness, we can break free from that cycle of suffering and contribute to a more harmonious world.
It's a challenge, for sure.
Yeah.
But it's a challenge worth taking on.
Absolutely.
Because the rewards, both for ourselves and for the world, are immeasurable. So as you go about your day, remember the words of Adi Shankaracharya. Remember that we're all connected and that our actions have the power to create this ripple effect of kindness and compassion that can transform our world. And with that, we'll leave you with this final thought to ponder. If the illusion of separation causes so much suffering, what could be possible if we truly embraced our interconnectedness? What kind of world could we create? What kind of person could you become?